Lufia and the Fortress of Doom and Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals both turned heads on the SNES before RPGs really took off in North America. They were never the most popular RPGs by any stretch of the imagination either, but both attracted a fan base. By 2001, fans of the series clamored for a new Lufia game like Lufia 2, so developer Nihon Flex obliged and began creating a new Lufia game for the PlayStation. It was going to be called Lufia 3 Ruins Chaser. Unfortunately though, there was a huge snag in the project. Development was delayed when Nihon Flex went totally out of business in the middle of the game's production, and the game itself was scrapped. Just when it seemed Lufia 3 would fade into the shadows of history though, original Lufia developer Neverland bought the rights to the project. However, they ultimately decided to convert it into a Game Boy Color game while still retaining many of the core components. The result was Lufia: The Legend Returns, which came out in 2001. In this one you take control of Wayne, a teenage descendant of Maxim. One day a mysterious woman in his village of Patos came looking for a swordsman. However, she is unpersuaded that Wayne has the skills she is looking for, so he becomes annoyed and takes out his aggression on monsters outside of town. As he travels back to the village though, a huge lightning bolt shoots out of the sky, burning down the house of Lamica, a girl who lives next to him. Wayne is able to save Lamica from danger, but is hurt in the process. He's nursed back to health by the mysterious woman, who now identifies herself as Sina, a traveling fortune teller. And get this, she convinces Wayne to join her on an ever-nebulous great adventure. Yeah, it's one of those games. The two venture to the nearby Tower of Death, where they find out that the attack on the village was actually the work of Gades. So yeah, that's right, this game brings back the Sinistrals, a fact sure to please fans of the previous two games. Most of the story involves finding a way to stop the newly awakened Sinistrals and save the world. Along the way, you can recruit 10 characters in addition to Wayne and Sina. Now the thing that stands out about this Lufia game compared to the others by far is the combat system. In the other Lufia games you can have up to 4 members in your party at one time, but in this one you can have a whopping 9. Characters are actually arranged in a 3x3 grid, with the row system making quite a big difference in terms of which characters deal and take the most damage. I've never really seen anything quite like it. It works a bit like the Final Fantasy games, just oriented vertically rather than horizontally. It all seems a bit confusing at first, but only 3 of your characters get a chance to act per turn, 1 per column. Also, if all 3 characters in the top row of your party are killed, you get a game over even if the other characters are left standing. I found this forced me to pay special attention to those characters and swap them around on the grid when necessary. Also, there's a mechanic called the Spiritual Force system that assigns a specific color with distinct benefits to each character. Red increases attack, blue increases magic, green increases defense, and yellow increases speed. You can learn IP attacks in this one with ancient texts found throughout the game, and your spiritual force level impacts the power level of the attacks you learn. Also, spiritual force flows between characters in the same row and column in battle, and many IP attacks require more than one color to learn. Again, all this is a little confusing, but this was definitely a unique mechanic, and I have to give credit to the development team for making the formation system a lot less dull than it is in many other games. Unlike all other titles in the Lufia series, all the dungeons in Lufia: The Legend Returns borrow from Lufia 2's ancient cave mechanic. This means that they're all randomly generated, so each playthrough will be completely different with different hidden items and passages. However, it must be noted that there aren't any puzzles to solve here at all, so people that love that aspect of Lufia 2 may be disappointed to some extent in this one. The sound quality in Game Boy Color games just doesn't hold up very well, and I'd be lying if I said it did. But for the system, the soundtrack in Lufia: The Legend Returns is really good. It brought back Yasunori Shiono from the previous 2 Lufia games, so you can definitely expect a very similar fantasy style. What is really impressive about this too is that there are almost 70 tracks, which is almost unheard of for a Game Boy Color game. So I guess the question eventually becomes, does this one hold a candle to the other Lufia games? Well, I'd say it's a very respectable follow-up to Lufia 2, and arguably one of the best RPGs on the Game Boy Color. It ties into the lore of the franchise well, and the characters are actually pretty well developed given the limitations of the platform. The dialogue is also pretty well written too, and filled with some of the same quirks and humor that attracted fans to the series. The unique combat system is what really shines, and that will definitely keep you on your toes. The decision to incorporate this style and create the spiritual force system were both bold departures from the previous Lufia games that actually worked well. It's true that some of the battles eventually become pretty monotonous, with regular attacks mostly doing the trick, but I guess that can be forgiven. I think it's a pretty respectable sequel that ties into the story of the series better than its successor, Lufia the Ruins of Lore for the Game Boy Advance. But I want to hear from you. Do you have any good memories of Lufia the Legend Returns? And how do you think it compares to the other Lufia games? Let me know in a comment below. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell for more retro gaming content. If you want early access to the videos I produce and other perks, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon patron or via the YouTube Join feature.